there. Welcome to the Movie Review Mom YouTube channel. If this is the very first time you've discovered me, yay, you're here. Finally, I've been waiting for you. And if you're a returning subscriber, yay, thanks for coming back. So my subscribers already know that my goal is to save you time and money by giving you the scoop on filmmaking quality and content, so you can decide whether or not you want to spend time or money watching a particular film. So today, the movie I'm reviewing is called Lost on a Mountain in Maine. This dramatic retelling of a true story releases in theaters on November 1st, 2024. The film is rated PG and it is family friendly. I'll give you some tips for parents here in just a minute. It's an hour and 38 minutes long, and my overall movie review mom grade is probably about an A-. I really enjoyed it. So first, I'm going to give you an overview in a nutshell, and then I'll point out things I liked, things I didn't like, tips for parents, themes worth talking about if you watch this with your friends or family, interesting lines, funny lines, and we'll finish up with recommendations for other films that are sort of similar that you might also really like. All right, so let's dive in. In a nutshell, the heart-wrenching movie is based on the book by the same name. The true story is about a 12-year-old boy who got separated from his family by a fast-moving storm and had to fight to survive during his 9-day adventure lost in the backwoods of Maine. A few years ago, my husband and I flew to Maine to see their beautiful fall colors, and because we'd never been there before and it was on my bucket list. We were so impressed with the kind people and the lovely landscapes. We also learned how harsh the weather can be, and we're told how quickly it can turn. And that fact is definitely illustrated in this film. The film was directed by Andrew Boodhoo Neitlinger. Writing credits go to Luke Paradise. The biggest name that you're going to see associated with this movie is Sylvester Stallone, who helped produce it. Don Fendler's story was recorded in a book that a 12-year-old Jim Boice read back in 1939. Now, my name is Trina Boice, but no relation, and the name is spelled a little bit differently, but that caught my eye. So 20 years later, Jim Boice read the story to his son, Dick. 30 years later, Dick became a producer that made this movie finally happen. Ta-da! Isn't that amazing? Let me give you some quick tips for parents. I think very young kids might be frightened. There isn't anything, crazy monsters or anything like that, but just the idea that they could get lost for days, without food and all of that. People, especially the 12-year-old boy, are in perilous situations. We see several injuries. A kid gets scolded for spitting a couple of times. There's mild profanity, but generally it is very family friendly. There's a scene where leeches get all over Don's little body, and you're just like, oh. And now young children may not know what that's all about and even how dangerous that could be. So you might need to explain that. Some of the themes that are illustrated very well are courage, fear, family, of course, parenting, hope, survival skills, taking it one step at a time, and responsibility for one's actions. So there's a long list of things I really liked about this film, obviously, because I gave it such a good score. So here's the beginning. The film features the young actor Luke David Blum as Don Fendler, as a 12-year-old boy. He's the one that gets lost on the mountain, and he did a really great job. I had never seen him in anything before, and if he wants a future in Hollywood, I think he's got one. Other cast members include Paul Sparks, Caitlin Fitzgerald, Ethan Slater, Bates Wilder, and more. Now, Bates caught my eye because that's my maiden name. And I thought, wait, is that this person's first name? That's interesting. Anyway, everyone did a really great job, I think, in their roles. And I thought that the casting was really good, specifically because I thought Caitlin Fitzgerald and Griffin Wallace Henkel actually looked like mother and son. Paul Sparks and Luke David Blum kind of look like father and son too. So I love that when actors actually look like they could be related. We see some beautiful landscapes, and the musical score by Garth Stevenson is also lovely and never overpowers, but simply supports what we're seeing and feeling in each scene. The film takes place at the beginning of the Great Depression in the United States. The film features several people who talked about the mountain in Maine and the real life events, including his younger brother, Ryan Fendler, and his mother, Ruth Fendler, like in real life, the real people. It's an interesting blend of documentary style filmmaking and fictional storytelling. Like those are the real people. They're not actors pretending to be the mother. It's like real footage. Anyway, I really liked that element of it. We learned that this was the largest search party in Maine at the time. Now, I mentioned that we get to see the beautiful landscapes of Maine, but obviously that was done so well because of the beautiful cinematography. Now, the villain is both the very stern father and the unrelenting mountain, which I thought was interesting. We see in here a young boy pray for help and make promises to God if he's saved, and we've probably all done that in our lives, maybe back when we were taking a test in middle school or high school or college, right? Well, now the movie's not necessarily a big Christian film. Religion isn't a huge part of it, but I thought that that was sweet. And we do see some quiet moments, especially with parents and other people where they're, hoping and praying that this child is going to be saved. While Don was in a dangerous predicament, very dangerous indeed, the movie shows his exuberant joy of having freedom and an adventure, possibly for the very first time in his young life, all while his parents were terrified for him. So the very first day, he's like, woo, and having fun. And then the reality sets in, as well as the hunger and the fear and all of that. And so I love that we were able to see that emotional journey in the movie. I love that the boy's mom, beautifully played by Caitlin Fitzgerald, didn't just sit around and cry. She took immediate action and was creative, trying to consider all the possible options that she could take to help save her son. And I've always wondered why women will just collapse and cry. Now, I'm an emotional woman as well, but worrying and crying doesn't ever solve the problem. There are some super creative camera angles that illustrate how young Don's world was just turning upside down, literally. We see that the father's words echo in the boy's mind and over because the father had taught him some basic survival principles over the years. And it's a powerful message to parents that our kids really do hear what we say, even if we don't think that they do. We see actual footage of the rescue and photos of some of the people involved in the real life events, especially Don himself as a grown man. Now, with all of that praise, there were just a few things that I didn't like or thought could have been done better. For example, some of the night scenes are so dark that it's really hard to see exactly what's happening, especially when there's lightning. So, we get the dramatic effect of the lightning, but if we feel like we're missing something because the action seems very choppy. I would have loved to have seen more details that showed how this young child actually survived. We learned that he walked 80 miles in 9 days. We see a few things, but I would have liked to have seen more. Did he build a hut or some kind of a structure for shelter? What was he eating, or did he just not eat at all? I wanted more details after I watched this. Ethan Slater's character is critical in the mountain climb, but then he just completely disappears from the story. Obviously, he's not the center of the story, but it would have been nice to see him maybe in the rescue scene. Maybe he wasn't in the rescue scene, but I liked him, and I'm like, wait, what happened to him? And finally, while the movie title's name is certainly descriptive, it's not very creative. So I'm guessing that they wanted it to be descriptive. They could have come up with something more powerful. I don't know. Now, whenever I watch movies, I write down the funny lines and the interesting lines that I hear simply so I can share them with you so you can get a taste and feel for the dialogue and the script writing quality. You can see all of them on my written review at moviereviewmom.com, but I'll share some of them with you right now. So first of all, Don Fendler, again played by Luke David Blum, is trying to catch a fish in the river, and he's not doing well at all. And you can tell he's getting hungry and discouraged and fearful. Where is he going to get meat from or any sustenance? And then finally, he actually does catch a fish and he yells, I am the kingfisher. And you could just see that joy. And whenever you watch these wilderness survival series and shows on TV, You know, they always say they will never take food for granted. And you feel that just exuberance and happiness for food when, you know, he catches this fish. But I won't spoil the rest of that. And then another line is when he's talking to God and he's trying to build a fire to cook the fish. And he says to God, you know, matches would be swell. Anyway, I won't tell you what happens next because that's interesting too. Now, on to the interesting lines. One of the lines that we hear several times and often spoken by Mr. Donald Fendler, the dad, who's played by Paul Sparks, is press on. And that rings through young Don's ears, head, and heart. Keep going, press on. And I wonder if you asked my kids, what's something your mom used to always say, I'd be really curious to hear what they would come up with, just because I was always trying to spout profundities and wisdom for these kids. Who knows what they actually remember? I'm going to have to ask them that. And then Don Fendler, the boy, says, you want us to be men? Then let us be men, because he wants to climb up that mountain. And his dad's like, oh, it's getting late. It's getting, you know, foggy and there are big storms coming and no. And, you know, and he really pushes. And then this was just such a heartbreaking moment when the father comes back and tells the mother, I lost our boy. You know, and I thought to myself instantly, what would I have said? I have 4 boys. What would I have said if my husband came in and said the same thing, you know? And what was interesting is the mother says, which one? And I was like, whoa. And then it leaves that scene alone for a while. And later on, we hear and see the real mother in a clip being interviewed in real life afterwards. And she says, later explaining that she secretly hoped it would be Don because she knew that he would find a way and not give up. The other son was just much younger. And so I think she thought, you know, they've trained and taught their son well, so he had the best fighting chance to survive. And I just thought that was so interesting and heartbreaking too. Another piece of advice that dad gives his son Don is if you ever get lost first, don't lose your head. And that was ringing in Don's head as well. All right, I have many more lines, but I'll share one last one with you. So this is also spoken by Don Fendler, and this is him as an adult being interviewed, and it's the not live, but it's the real footage of him when he was interviewed, you know. Anyway, he says, what did I get out of it? It taught me to be responsible for my actions, and it taught me love of family. And I thought that that was really sweet. All right, so obviously I enjoyed the movie very much. So whenever I watch movies, I instantly think of other films that are sort of similar. And so here's the list of films I wanted to recommend in case they flew under your radar and you haven't seen them. The first one is called Society of the Snow. Now that one came out last year and it was a remake of Alive, when the Chilean soccer players get stranded in the Andes Mountains. Do you remember that? True story. And I thought that this remake was done really well. The first time I saw the first film, it stuck with me. I was just in awe. And I think the second film was even better. So I'm going to queue up that movie review that I did. So when you finish watching this one, you could just click on the little rectangle and watch that one in case you're intrigued. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. But be aware, this is not, you know, family friendly. People die and it's really harsh, but good, but very well done. And then the next movie is called Into the Wild. And again, it's kind of out there surviving in nature, figuring out who you are as a man kind of a film. And then just a classic survival movie that I just love is Castaway, starring Tom Hanks. Do you remember that? If you're younger, you may never have seen that one. It's so good. It's got humor, drama, heartfelt wisdom, and it's just great. So definitely add that to your watch list if you haven't seen it, or watch it again because it's so good. All right, that's it. I hope that if you watch this movie, you enjoy it. Thanks so much for spending some time with me. As you know, like, subscribe, ring the bell, all that kind of stuff. And by the way, those movies I just recommended have links down in the description below that'll take you straight to them so that you can see them that way. Have a fantastic day, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.